Hey everyone, welcome to Founders 365 with me, Steven Haggerty. Today I'm joined by Charlie Cook, founder of Rightcharge. How are you today, Charlie?
Hi, Stephen. Very well, and thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being on. Super looking forward to getting understanding of what you do and what Rightcharge offers. So let's jump straight into this and just tell me, what is Rightcharge?
Sure thing. So it probably helps to give a quick background of myself. I think that helps to explain where it's come from. So I worked for 2 or 3 years in the electric vehicle space. I was working for a leasing company that lease pure EVs only. So that means basically cars that are purely driven through the battery and no internal combustion engine. My role was very much around how to charge them. So you buy an electric car, you take it home, all of a sudden you realize that you don't need to visit a petrol station again, and you can just plug it in and go from there. And so that's a nice experience for a lot of people. All of a sudden they have their petrol station at home and they just charge their car like their phone, rather than having to go and stand in a smelly forecourt ever again. And then taking that step further, there's been this explosion in this space of different technology. So the first charge points that you would install at home, and just to explain, a charge point is essentially kind of like I guess it's a box with some smart tech inside that gets fixed to the front of your house or to the inside of your garage, and an electrician will come around and they'll wire that through then to your main electricity system, so you get higher power, faster charging. And it's the smarts in the box that differentiate these things. So it's not necessarily just like a simple high-speed plug on the front of your house. You've got some chargers that will, say, speak to your solar panels if you have solar on the roof. Most of the smart chargers these days will have communication systems in them, so you can control them from your phone, and they'll do things like schedule your charging for the cheapest times of night, so save you a few £100s a year. So Rightcharge is a comparison website for those different products. We help drivers to understand which one they should be getting, and then we work with about 25 installation companies across the country at the moment, and depending on the product that a driver chooses and where they live, we pass them through to the right installer in our network, and we work on a lead generation basis. So our business model is based on commission for those leads.
Yeah, amazing. At what point when you were in your last company that you thought, okay, this is a problem and I'm the guy to solve it?
Great question, because it was the first time in my life, I think, that I really felt like this was something I could really visualize coming to life. So I would imagine you sort of understand this, and I imagine a lot of your listeners would understand it, but for a long time, for probably since I was 10, I had my first little crack at a business when I was 10, which in the end, I think, to be honest, I took the money and my mum kind of ran. But, you know, it's been kind of in my mind to start something for a very long time. And so I've always been thinking, okay, what's the right idea? What's the right idea? And I think because I was in the space through my job, and so I knew the people that I would need to be talking to bring this to life. And because I'd worked in a startup, I kind of knew the processes, the general processes I'd have to go through to get this off the ground. And so I think for the first time in my life, I thought, well, you know, I know the people, I know what to do. I can see each step of how to bring this to life. And I can probably do that without much funding. So that was kind of what that gave me the inspiration to go and do it. And to begin with, I was doing it in my evenings and weekends. And after about 4 weeks, I was just like, I'm killing myself here, and this is going to take 10 years to get off the ground at this speed. So again, it was my mum who said, you should just do this properly if you're going to do it, Charlie. And so she said,
basically, you just always have to listen to your mum.
Right. Yeah. Biggest tip of this conversation.
Yeah. If anything goes, it's listen to your mum.
She's always right.
Yeah. In the early days, you obviously took that leap from employment to your own project and, you know, bootstrapped it yourself. Let's talk about how that is, because it's almost like a trend now, isn't it, with startups where they get funding really early on. it doesn't alleviate pressure, but it's a very different beast when you're just doing it on your own and you're just pumping your own money into it. Talk to me about that journey in that self.
Sure. So I think, you know, talking about my own experience, I think not having funding actually helped sort of focus everything for a long time. I mean, admittedly, you know, it's obviously taken longer to sort of get to where we are without funding compared to perhaps if we'd had 100 grand up front or something.
Yeah.
But if we'd had 100 grand up front, I'm almost certain I would have gone out and spent it on the wrong things, because, yeah, you know, it just takes time, and maybe it depends on how obvious it is, you know, how obvious your solution is. We're bringing a business to market that's got no comparables. You know, there's no equivalent business model. So perhaps that's a driver. But I've certainly found that it's just taken time for things to crystallize, and I don't think spending loads of cash would have really helped.
Yeah,
change that in hindsight.
Did you know that from day one, or did you originally have the plan to go down and find funding?
No, I think, you know, I've been brought up in the same culture as you, which is you see sort of social network and you're like, okay, well, success is going out and raising $1 million before I've got a product. But and so, yeah, so I there have been quite a few stages of the journey where I've been like, okay, is now the right time to go out and get funding, or is now the right time to go out? And I've had good advice at those. I mean, one really good piece of advice I had from someone was, if you don't know exactly what you're going to spend the money on, then you probably don't need it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you're always trying to balance that with, okay, I understand that if I wait a little bit longer and, you know, achieve more, then I'm going to raise for less equity, right? And so there's always been this like temptation for me to go out thinking I can sort of solve the next problem by getting funded, or maybe I can hire a great CTO, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, I've always looked back and thought, okay, I'm glad that I just focused on testing the product, speaking to customers, improving those things, and getting towards a stage where I think now actually is probably the time where we should be. And yeah, we're talking seriously about raising funds now.
Did you ever feel any pressure from that social media or going to events and speaking to fellow startup founders about the funding side? Because it seems to be one of the first 3 questions that often pop up when you're at a networking event or you're just talking to people online.
Did I see pressure? Yeah, I think so. I think there's probably part of it is a sort of insecurity of, okay, if I'm not funded, then I don't sound like a serious company, you know?
But you are a serious company, Charlie, you are.
Thank you, Stephen. This is what I'm here for. Just a bit of reassurance.
Exactly.
Yeah, before I call my mum, of course.
Yeah, of course, afterwards.
Yeah,
I'll send this directly to her, so it's fine.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
But funding, I think, you know, there's this temptation. Okay, if I get funding, then you know, we're a serious business. But obviously, the reality is that I think the real metric that obviously matters is, are other things like, you know, how satisfied are your customers, and how much is your revenue growing, and do you feel like you've got the right product? And so, I mean, I'm not saying that funding isn't crucial. It obviously is, but I think there's a temptation to put. It's almost like an easy. It feels like an easy solution as a founder, I think, to a lot of problems.
And often it causes more problems in the long run.
I think so, and I didn't appreciate that until someone, you know, they said, "Look, you're bringing on an investor. It's just one more problem for you to have." Money's not going to necessarily solve it's not going to remove all problems for sure. Yeah,
exactly. Let's talk about your customers then, because in terms of the consumer journey, how obvious is the problem for them when it comes to thinking about that point where they need to plug in their car? Because I'm sure up until then, just like a normal car, I guess, normal is a bad term, I guess, because there's so many electric cars now.
Old school, traditional, whatever you want to use. Obsolete.
Diesel.
Yeah. You know, children killing. Yeah,
children killing, planet killing machines. One of those. You don't think about it, right? It's not even in your consciousness because there are petrol stations everywhere. I know there's more charging stations popping up everywhere, but what level do you sort of intercept your customer at to educate them in terms of going, hey, look, we have all these suppliers that can help you?
For sure. So this was actually one of the things. So we are on a program run by NatWest called the NatWest Accelerator. Which is a fantastic program. There's no funding involved, but if anything, I think that's quite nice because it's all just purely about support. And so they give you, you have access to their workspace at Angel and support, business support, one-on-one mentors. And one of the first things that they worked through with us was, okay, who are your customers and at what stage in their journey are you valuable and what stage should you be targeting to sort of intercept them at?
Yeah.
So exactly, I think the question you're asking. And the truth is that someone obviously they're going to be thinking about the car first. It's unusual that someone would be like, I'd really like a charger, now I need a car. So obviously it's the other way around.
You know what my house is missing? An
right.
charger.
Oh, now I've got my charge point. I guess I should get something to plug it into. So that doesn't happen clearly. But frequently someone will order a vehicle, and because these cars are newer to the market, it's more popular, or a higher percentage of the buyers are leasing them. The second-hand market is emerging, but very small. So
sure.
Our customer is very likely to be leasing an electric vehicle, and I think it's very common for the charging questions to come up for them before they've even decided on the vehicle. Because they're thinking, okay, it sounds great. They might think that being able to charge at home is very important. There are thousands of people that don't have home chargers that live with EVs, but obviously one of those questions is, am I going to be able to charge at home, and what does that look like? How much does it cost? How long does it take? How do I find a charge point? Who installs it? All of these things, and so we can come in and, I think a lot of people use the website to try and answer those questions up front. And I get phone calls and emails from people just asking me, would I be able to get a charge point? And 95% of the time, if you have a driveway or a garage, the answer is yes. But, clearly the people are not sure about that. And so we come into that point and help them then sort of have the confidence to choose their car. I think, obviously then customers also come to us further down their journey. Some of them are coming to us for their second charge point. They've had a car for 5 years, but I'm really keen to make sure that we're actually particularly helping those people that are really new, because they're reflective of the more mass market customers that are coming in now. We're moving away from that sort of early adopter and into the mass market. And so if as a company and a website we can help those people to have confidence to switch to electric, that's the sort of objectives that I think as a business are really cool for us to have, to feel like we're accelerating that trend is really cool.
That brings me on to a great question, in the sense of, how have you seen the mindset of the consumer change over the past couple of years? Because electric vehicles in general have exploded onto the market. It used to be when you saw a Tesla, you'll be like, oh my god, that's a Tesla. Right. And now it's like, oh, it's a Tesla, or oh, it's a BMW,
oh, here's my Uber.
Both my brothers have electric cars, so it's like it just seems to be everywhere now. So how have you seen that change in the mindset of the consumer? Because I guess your business, Rightcharge, is coming at the perfect time, right? There is no perfect time, but this seems to be a perfect time for a solution like this. So in terms of traffic and the conversations you've had, how have they developed?
Sure. There's definitely been a change over the past, say, 3 years. When we first started, it was certainly the more early adopter kind of crowd. And so, like you say, now is the time to be bringing out solutions that are appropriate for the mass market, which means that they have to be easy to use, simple, sort of not using any jargon, because that's a real challenge, I think, with a lot of products that drivers come across in this space. Is all of a sudden you're talking about kilowatts and kilowatt hours, which means absolutely nothing to anyone. And so you've got to talk about it in different ways. And the product that we offer, the product that we help people to choose is complicated and completely new to people, so it's like, in a way, that's fantastic, because it means that there's huge value in being able to simplify that. Obviously, then the challenge is actually being able to sort of help people through that process.
An educator.
It's about using the right language, making up new language, actually, sometimes to try and help to simplify things. So yeah, we are moving from that early adopter to the more mass market sort of target audience.
Yeah, massively, which is good. Do you partner with any manufacturers at the moment, or is that something you're going to look at going down?
Vehicle manufacturers?
Yeah.
We don't know. So for us, we have our partnerships are obviously we have to have this network of installation companies. One of them is an energy supplier in the UK because they have their own workforce and they offer it as another product. We're also talking to 2 of the big 6 energy companies. They also have, you know, huge workforces of engineers that come in and fit smart meters and also charge points. So in addition to that, we don't actually have direct partnerships with the manufacturers of the chargers because we're completely dependent of them, and the end provider is actually the installer, which is like the equivalent of your boiler getting installed. So you would actually buy that. I think vast majority of the time people will buy their boiler with the installation from the plumber, as opposed to going out and getting the part by itself. And then, so it works in the same way for the charge point market. Vehicle manufacturers we don't have partnerships with, and I think we potentially could, but the nearer opportunity is actually to speak to vehicle leasing companies. So you know, some of these leasing companies sell tens of thousands of vehicles a year, and we're talking to some that are selling about 20 to 30,000 cars a year, and at the moment about 10% of them are electric. So what we can offer is essentially, you know, we can just give them the comparison tool as it is. They can offer that to their customers, sort of white labeled if they like, doesn't matter to us. Customer comes through to our system and then we generate leads then to our installers. So that's probably, you know, that on the vehicle side, that's where our focus will be for partnerships.
Super interesting. Where's Rightcharge going then? Where, you know, you've been going a year, right? About a year?
We were incorporated at the end of April. Yep.
Ah, so nearly your 1-year birthday.
Which is nice very time exciting to have a 1-year birthday.
Nice. What are you going to do for it? Nothing, because we can't.
Stay inside.
I'm going to stay inside. But what's your plan? What are you going to do with Rightcharge? Where are you guys heading or hoping to go?
So the vision is that Rightcharge will be the charge point comparison tool that is used by people that come to our website. So we'll do everything we can to increase our traffic and increase our prominence on search engines. But then obviously there's always going to be drivers that use the sort of solutions that are offered to them by their vehicle provider. So I want Rightcharge to power the charge point experience for every leasing company, obviously, and every online broker and every dealership. Would be, the ultimate goal. I'm very happy for Rightcharge to sit behind that system, and so, you know, all of those companies could have that branded and potentially some unique features of their own, but it would always just be powered by Rightcharge. So we have this strategy that's both direct B2C with our own brand and building our own brand, but then at the same time this B2B strategy, which is getting as many of these partnerships and integrations done as possible, and sitting behind those.
How does it feel being involved in a new industry? Because there's very little industries nowadays which you can say are fairly new, but charging points for the home user wasn't around 10 years ago. You know, like you said, 5-6 years ago maybe, but now it is getting to that normal stage. How does it feel being such an early adopter in a business of that level?
No one's ever asked me that.
I'm doing my job then.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, good question. So I think there's a couple of things. One is, like, when you're in it, it doesn't feel that new.
Yeah, sure.
You know, everyone I talk to on a daily basis is also in it, and probably has been in it, but for no more than maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years. So obviously it's super exciting. And yeah, it is really exciting, and it is fascinating because it is so fast moving, and it's kind of I was about to say unprecedented, and I saw a LinkedIn tweet today saying the use of the word unprecedented is unprecedented at the moment, so I'd avoid that. But
you just said it as well. So.
I've said it like 3 times. So you know, you're in a space that's evolving, and no one really knows what direction the markets are going to go. So you know, for example, is the technology going to almost become less diverse and sort of diverge around a single provider or a single sort of technical spec for these charge points? At the moment, they are very different, but there's like regulations that are coming into play to actually provide more guidelines, or even sort of enforceable guidelines around the specifications of these products. So are they going to become more unique, or is the trend of sort of diversification and the manufacturers adding new features, is that going to continue? And you just don't know. I suppose you can look at industries like smartphones for comparables, and you can see that, okay, fine, you know, most people have an iPhone or a Samsung or one of a handful of mobiles, but I guess what in this particular scenario, this particular example, what gives me confidence is that you still have Carphone Warehouse. You still consumers still want that step in their purchasing journey to be comparing options, speaking to independent experts, and then choosing the right one for them. So I think
that's the benefit of Rightcharge, because you've positioned yourself in a place where it's almost irrelevant of what happens in the industry in terms of type of tech and how many installation users can be allowed in the industry or whatever it is. You can still position yourself, be like, look, whatever happens, we're still going to give you the best one, or we're still going to make your solution fit for the best one, which must be nice, knowing that, you know, not to run before you walk, but knowing that you're building this really fairly stable company and you're the first one doing it.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, right now, you know, we're kind of insulated from a lot of the market movements. So, for example, there's a government grant, and that changed recently, which then meant that all of our partners had to adjust their pricing. For us, you know, it's not something that affects us, because our competition will be someone that comes along with a similar product and proposition, which hasn't happened yet, but obviously that's our biggest threat.
Suddenly start doing charging stations.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not good news. So if anyone in Compare the Market is listening, don't do that.
No, just buy us.
Yeah, just buy Charlie. There you go.
Yeah. You'll be cheaper and easier.
Yeah, and that's a lot more fun as well when you're driving away and you're brand new. I don't know. What's the dream electric car for you?
Teslas are so far ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So my personal favorite is you've got the Tesla Model S, which is like the saloon, and then you've got the Tesla Model X, which is the sort of big SUV.
Right?
The big gull wing, or falcon wing doors, which are cool, but you know, when you've actually driven that car around the country a bit, you start to get a bit embarrassed about letting people out the back of the car, actually. So for me, Tesla Model S, if anyone's listening one day, that's or look, for myself, if things go right, that would be my first buy.
It's not look, it's when things go right, man.
That's it, Stephen. Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, sorry.
But listen, I'm super intrigued by your journey of Rightcharge. I'm really looking forward to just seeing how you guys develop in the marketplace. One of my final questions to you, though, is if you could give any advice to fellow founders that are perhaps doing it on their own without the investment side of things, what are the 3 things that you've taken away in the last year that could help them?
Okay, cool. So I think number 1 is important, which is the one we've covered, which is that funding isn't always the answer, and it's tempting to focus on it, but focusing on your product and on your customers and getting the product right for your customers 100% is the most important thing for your business. Number 2, just be very careful and protective with your equity, because it's easy to give equity away, but it's impossible, very hard to get it back. Fortunately, haven't actually given any equity away. You know, obviously there's good times to do that, but there have been a lot of moments in the journey for me where that's felt like a good idea. I've kind of, in the end, chosen not to, and in hindsight, glad I didn't. So that would be number 2. Be careful with your equity, and yeah, be very protective. Number 3, prepare better for these kind of interviews.
No, I don't give you anything to prepare, so.
That's true. Let me just give me a second. Hold on. Yeah, be creative, I guess. And like, if you're bootstrapping, bootstrapping is a good way to build things. Obviously, it takes a little bit longer, but you know, it does mean that you are more creative. So I don't know, just I needed a tech resource. My little brother's a computer scientist, so he built the first version of the site when he graduated, but then he got a job, so I needed a tech solution. And
that's brotherly loyalty right there.
I know, yeah.
Gets a job and leaves you.
Right. Yeah, I know. Going into finance, pathetic.
Yeah.
But what I did in the end was I was just at Imperial University for something else, and I just saw that there was a bunch of notice boards in the computer science department. So I went and put up some posters, and I knocked on the door of the computer science department staff and just asked them if they could chuck something in their newsletter. And they were like, "Who the hell are you?" But okay.
Why are you just walking around a university?
Yeah. But weirdly, you can. So maybe that's tip number 4. You can just walk around universities. And then a lad got in touch who is a certified genius, and he has been working on and off for me. He's still at Imperial, but he's built the vast amount of our tech since then. I'm now working with an Indian agency who are looking very good. But yeah, be creative, and not having much money forces you to be creative.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I think it's so easy to become comfortable and get things handed to you, and you forget to look in spots that you may not have considered before. So that's a really, really good point. Thank you for that. Charlie, listen, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, speak to you more about Rightcharge, learn more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just drop me an email. My email is charlie.cook, C-O-O-K, @rightcharge.co.uk, or LinkedIn.
Or LinkedIn, or any of the other stuff, or the website, or whatever.
Not Twitter, I don't check it, but yeah. Email or LinkedIn is good.
Perfect, Charlie. Thank you so much for coming on Founders 365.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys develop over in Rightcharge. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. This has been Founders 365.